Welcome back to another episode of the Adventures of a Disney Dad podcast. We are going to talk all things listener questions this week. We're going to touch base on the Disney news at Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Everyone's freaking out, and we're going to talk about why. We've got some interesting country Bears news, and then we're going to get into those listener questions. We're going to talk about whether Genie Plus without Park Hopper is worth it, which is an interesting question. We've got some other questions about bounce back offers, Fantasmic, the best month to go to Walt Disney World. We're going to get into all that. But first, let's touch base on this week's Disney news. And we're not going to talk too much about Tiana's in terms of spoilers. Chip and I are both, I think, anti spoilers. We don't like to watch the full ride POVs. I know Walt Disney World just put out a new full ride POV, and people are very upset about it. And
I'm with
I
them,
feel like
dude.
that's putting it lightly.
I thought it was like, really? You don't need to do that yet. I haven't watched it. I'll tell you that. I've not watched the full POV.
They're not even mad that the POV got put out. I mean, I think some content creators are because that's a lot of them being first to have a full ride POV because they get to go with a cast member is how they make a lot of money from views on YouTube and stuff. But putting that aside, like they're mad about like the actual ride itself, having watched the PO. There's also a lot of talk amongst the clickbait news sites about the struggles that the ride is having with previews. There's been a lot of evacuations. We're not going to harp on that because we've got 23 more days until the ride goes live. So there's no reason to be freaking out that the ride is having some issues. That's what this is all for, that they can get more people in there, they can do more testing. I understand that people are worried about Disney quality or whatever, but those same people that are freaking out about that freak out about everything else that they say Disney's losing quality. And I also think that the Venn diagram of people that complained about Splash Mountain switching to Tiana's that are complaining about this is a circle.
Yeah.
It's the same people. It's the same people. And so that's my perspective on it. Chip, I know you've been following this stuff. You haven't watched the ride POV, but I think you have seen some of the discussion about the quality being down, the storyline not fitting, Facilier not being included. Does any of that stuff bother you, or are you still just excited?
I'm excited. I've some of my favorite content creators have been on it, and I've listened to their opinions and whatnot, and it's all been positive. And at least in my case, that they're saying they see touches of both sides.
Are those industry plants, as Jenny Nicholson would call them?
I don't know. I mean, they could be being paid. I don't know, but I like it. Like all the animatronics I've seen, and I've seen the majority of them, especially going up to Big Hill. I've seen that. No spoiler alerts, but they've got some animatronics up there, and I've seen the ending scene. Just the atmosphere, the colors. You see both things, but going back to the ride's been down for what, over a year and a half, 2 years.
I think it's been, well, yeah, it's I guess January of 2023. So
So a year and a half,
year and a
and
half
it
almost.
hasn't been riding. I saw yesterday they were dropping without water going down the big hill, which okay, that's fine. It's still working. So I have no issues with it. I think I'm excited about it. My kids are excited about it. We haven't watched anything. We're not going to watch the POV. We do POV videos for rides we've done though. That's
Mhm.
one thing we do, but not for new rides.
From everything that I've heard, it's like a timing issue of when the logs get to each part of the entertainment factor of the ride or whatever, the animatronics, like the timing is off. And so they're having
Yeah.
to do different things with the electronics with that. To me, it just doesn't worry me. But like I've seen people going through like frame by frame, zooming in on walls, saying like this hole was filled in kind of a not high quality way that Disney Imagineering is known for, yada yada yada. Like, come on, man. And when it comes to the storyline, I had this conversation with quite a few people on Instagram this week. The storyline thing to me is kind of funny because I sit here and I honest to God, Chip, we've probably ridden Guardians of the Galaxy 50 times at least, right? I
Yeah.
could not sit here. I love that ride, but I could not tell you what the storyline is. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell
The
you.
old,
I just could tell
the
you
old,
the big monster guy and you're flying around and like
yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
I don't, I'm with you. I mean, I get that we got to go get something, but I don't know if we ever get it. I don't know.
And there's no real storyline to Frozen Ever After or Remy's. You're just going through kind of parts of the movie. It's not cohesive in the sense of like telling a new story. The majority of other rides at Walt Disney World don't even have a storyline. So
Yeah.
I think that kind of stuff is just kind of ridiculous that people are nitpicking at that stuff. And I do think there's something to be said for the people that are nitpicking about this ride are a lot of the same people that were mad it was switched in the first place.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons, I'm not going to sit and speculate because that's not what we do on this podcast, but I do think it's a lot of the same people. And I have seen an overwhelming number of people that have ridden it that have absolutely loved it. So, and those that are not industry plans, like, right? Like
Yeah,
people that are not being paid to be there are
there's
really enjoying it.
there's a guy on X that I've been watching, and he said I've literally covered this ride from when it got closed. That's what he
Yeah,
does.
I watched
And
him too.
he said it was better than he expected, and he was a big Splash Mountain fan. So that got me hyped. I mean, I don't know.
That is, I think it's at the Disney Dude
Yeah,
on X, and he's basically followed and kind of been a journalist on that ride in particular,
yeah,
every single day since the construction started. I think he's a little bit biased. So, like to me, I always take his opinions with a little bit of a grain of salt, just because he's literally invested so much of his life, and he talks about it. He talks about it
yeah.
openly that he's invested so much of his life following the every single day changes on that ride. And good for him. Kudos. Like the content's been great. I think a lot of people have found his content from doing that. But at the same time, like I love seeing people that don't have a vested interest in the ride in particular, riding it and giving their honest opinion, because the things you're hearing is, yeah, it is a reskin, but the animatronics are phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. I know
I'm
we're excited.
Have you
We'll see
noticed?
how it goes.
I feel like they're getting it's more like you get more wet,
It
and I
looks
don't
that
know.
way. I've seen a
That's
few people
early.
say they've been drenched.
Yeah. So
But again, you don't know if the speed or the timing or whatever has changed. So, hopefully that's a little bit part of a different experience. Moving on though, we got news today that Jollywood Nights is going to be back at Hollywood Studios. Disney put out casting information for dancers, which confirms that the after hours event for Christmas time will be coming back to Hollywood Studios. Chip, you and I did not personally go to this last year.
no.
Is it something I went to the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party? Is it something that intrigues you? Or what are your thoughts on Jollywood Nights? Like, do you want to go? It got a lot of
Uh,
bad feedback at the beginning, but I think towards the end,
yeah, they
it was a lot
recovered.
better.
I think they
Yeah.
recovered. If it was my wife and I, maybe. But if it's a family thing, we're gonna go to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. I don't know if I would. Like I said, it's one of I think it's Disney trying to be more adult friendly,
Mhm.
especially when they're having stuff at Hollywood Brown Derby. They're focusing more on the cocktails, the kind of the uppity up. I like the idea. It's just probably not for me yet. Maybe when I get older and I'm not going without my kids as much, I think that might be what I do.
I think my problem with it was that it didn't have enough experiences. And, when you pay a premium to go to these events, it shouldn't just be to be able to ride rides with a lower crowd.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot on this show about how like Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, they don't necessarily have lower crowds. Like the rides are not all going to be walk-ons or whatever that you might expect. But the good thing about those things is that it spreads people out because you've got new characters, and Jollywood Nights had some of that. But there's just a lot of other experiences and things to do that spread people out among the event. And I think that was, the initial negative experience that people had with Jollywood Nights. I put out a poll on Instagram, and it was pretty much a third of the people would rather do Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, which I think is understandable, knowing our audience has a lot of kids, as Chip pointed out.
Yeah.
And then there was probably 60% said no, but I want to, that they had never been to it, but they want to go. And then it was around 10% that said they're not interested in the Jollywood Nights, which I think is understandable too. It's not for everybody, as are, the after hours events aren't for everybody either.
Yeah.
But exciting to have it coming back because I do think it helps spread people out. And I think more events is better. So
And
we're looking forward
I'm
to that.
I'm hoping they add more dates. They had very limited dates last year, so I'm hoping we get a few more extra dates, especially early December, late November. I think that would be a great time to go.
Yeah, I agree. Right there, just after Thanksgiving is a good spot. It's a good point where, the first couple weeks of December are great times to go to Walt Disney World for sure. Jumping into new photos and video, and I know Chip is excited about this one, of the Island Tower Rooms came out at the Polynesian opening December 17th. DVC members have been able to start making bookings. I've seen some people posting some prices for DVC for like January. And let me tell you, those rooms are they're not, but they look gorgeous. Chip, what did you think of the video and the photos from that?
I can't wait to stay. That was kind of my initial thought.
Better stack those points.
Yeah, we might, but it looks like they're tying both sides. So they're
Mhm.
tying the Moana rooms in there. You know what? I also thought it looked more like Copper Creek villas than it does Riviera in terms of the way the room is.
Oh, it gives me Coronado Springs Grandestino Tower vibes a little bit.
Well, I'm talking like the two bedroom, just the because
Yeah.
they go it's straight along the wall, and maybe the Riviera is that way. I don't remember, but I felt more because that's how exactly how Copper Creek is. It's the kitchen's directly on the wall, and you have seating to the right. So that's kind of what I saw looking at it. But you're right; it does give that tower the tower
Mhm.
clean vibe. I thought it looked
Yeah.
clean.
Clean, modern, sleek, very minimalist Disney. I love it. I think it looks gorgeous. I think I saw one of the two-bedroom for 2 nights in January was like 9 grand or something.
Oof.
It was there were some of the smaller rooms were more affordable and more what you'd expect of the Polynesian, but it was not cheap, and I am interested mostly to see what it does to the pricing of the Polynesian. Now 2025, rack rates are already out, so it's not gonna change unless it's included in more promotions. It's not gonna change a whole lot for 2025, but I think moving forward, you could see prices at the Polynesian dip just a little bit so that, other people can experience it a little bit more, which I think would be nice. The last bit of Disney news that we're going to get into is the Country Bears retheme was announced a while back, but we've actually got the songs that are going to be coming out. Disney gave us a little bit of a preview. They're kind of a country rendition of A Whole New World from Aladdin and Try Everything from Zootopia. Chip, what was your vibe on this? Weren't you're a Country Bears guy, aren't you?
I love Country Bears.
I knew that was coming.
I didn't mind it. I mean, if you're going to do something, they're going to update it, then you might as well incorporate some of that. Listening to the Try Everything was interesting because I'm not one of those people that, and I'm a music person. Like I love music. I was in show choir in high school. Shout out Mrs. Mingy if she's listening. She's a big Disney fan. Taking Try Everything to country, it just didn't seem right. But maybe it'll learn to grow on me. I'm just not one of those people that takes like pop songs and turn it country. I don't get it. Like that's just me. I'm excited for what all they're going to include because they've got some big names that they've got for voices. So I'm excited for that.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm not. I confess I'm not a Country Bears guy, but I do think that bringing it into some sort of modern rendition of a Disney classic is the right way to go. I'm confused by the Zootopia
Yeah.
reference. Like that just is weird to me. But either way, I think the most important thing is that kids are gonna love it because kids love those songs and they do really well. So it'll be interesting to see the animatronics. All great. Disney gave a kind of background into the costumes and the new
Costumes. Yeah.
animatronics and all that stuff. They look awesome. So I think that's exactly what we'd expect
Do
from
they have a
Disney on
date
that
yet?
front.
They have a date yet for that?
No date yet, but we'll
Okay.
certainly keep everybody informed as soon as we find out, because Chip will be rope dropping day one.
Listen, I was kind of hoping it was going to be coming out right when I got there. 'Cause
Of course you would.
I know.
Jumping into our listener questions, we appreciate all the questions you get. You can send them to us on social media at Adventures of Disney Dad or at Robinson Dad Life on Instagram. You can also find us on YouTube and all that fun stuff, or you can email. All the links are in the show notes. But jumping into those listener questions this week, the first one, and I've got guests that are currently at Walt Disney World, and one of them had this exact issue, and I found it to be a little intriguing. Is Genie Plus worth it if you don't get a park hopper? Chip, I think you could address this park by park, but let's just say in general. And I,
Yes,
I feel like you and I are going to have different. Well, are we going to have different views on this?
maybe. I don't know.
All
I,
right.
I
So
probably.
you start. Is it worth it?
Yes, I think it's worth it. Here's why. And listen, you could go in but my kids, if we're gonna only go to one park one day, then we're gonna rope drop and we're gonna do as much as we can, and then come back later on the day and see what rides we haven't done. Now that I've started learning how to stack, I think I'm gonna be more efficient at it. But that is one of the downfalls with Genie Plus is you can only get a Genie Plus for that ride one time, unless
Mhm.
you get the anytime Genie Plus Lightning Lane.
Yeah, which only happens when a ride closes down or whatever. So definitely don't count on that. But like the issue here, where I found it to be really intriguing, is let's say you go to Hollywood Studios and you don't have kids, so you don't want to ride Slinky Dog. Rise of the Resistance is an individual lightning lane, so it's not included with Genie Plus. Rock and Roller Coaster is closed, so you're basically buying Genie Plus for Tower of Terror and for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Oh, Smuggler's Run too.
Smuggler's Run, for the most part, you can find it for 30 minutes during the day.
Oh yeah,
Even on
yeah.
busy days, you can find it for a 30-minute wait. So, and the 30-minute wait is pretty much what you're gonna wait for Lightning Lane on that ride, right? You're gonna wait like 15 to 30 minutes. I think I've been told they have 18 ride vehicles for Smuggler's Run.
Yep.
So it's not a high capacity attraction. But that's not great.
Yeah. No.
Like and but again, you're choosing not to ride the headliner of Slinky Dog, right? But you can only ride Tower of Terror once. And basically, I had guests there that I was booking Genie Plus for this weekend didn't care to ride Slinky Dog, so because they didn't want to pick it first, and it sold out within 1 minute. By the way, it's the
Oh
first
my
time I've ever
gosh.
seen that. Usually,
Wow.
it's got 5 sold out before it hit 701. I was blown away. But putting that aside, like if you don't want Slinky Dog and you don't want to pay individual Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance, then it gets into the territory where I don't know if it's worth it. And the same thing applies to Epcot because I was doing it for them today. If you've got the choice between Remy's and Frozen for your first selection, they didn't even get a chance. They picked Remy's this morning. I booked it at 7 o'clock. By the time their first time to select their next ride at 11 a.m. came around, Frozen was gone. So, well, I mean, what else do you really need it for? Everything else was under 30-minute wait. So, like,
Well,
you get into some areas where without Park Hopper, again, we're talking about without Park Hopper. If you have Park Hopper, and in my opinion, if you have kids, you have to buy Genie Plus. It's like you do.
I was getting to that point, like Matt. I'm not waiting 30 minutes with my kids. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
if we get in line and it's 10, 15 minutes, okay, I'll wait for that. But like I'm trying to think
I've never
Epcot.
not bought Genie Plus at Disney World.
Yeah.
Literally, even by myself, I've never not bought it. So, like, we are Genie Plus guys on this show. But that
Yeah.
said, like it's the without the Park Hopper thing that makes it a little bit more of a decision, I think. Especially if you've got a big party. Like it's going to cost you $120 or $130 and you aren't going to ride those rides, then I think it becomes more of a balance, I think.
And I'll tell you this, Matt. So we went to Epcot last year and we got Remy's. Oh no, we rope dropped Remy's. I think we went over to Frozen right away. The only ride we didn't get done, and it's because it closed a lot of it, was Test Track. I was over in the land pavilion and we got a lightning lane for Soren. We did rider swap. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not waiting 5 minutes. I know it says 5 minutes. Probably just walk on for Living with the Land. But I got a lightning lane for it and walked right in. It's just one of those. It's right here. I might as well use it. And I wouldn't have waited any time. It was walk on, like you and I did it with Chris earlier this year. And I'll do the same thing with any of those rides. Like if there's a 5 minute wait, sometimes I'll say, hey, let's ride it, and then we'll come back and use our lightning lane, and that way you get it done twice. That's a good tip. But yeah, any park. Now listen, Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, personally, I think it's the best to buy it.
Yes.
Without Park Hopper. And you can rope drop, and there's videos on YouTube of if you rope drop and go to Remy's and then walk over to Frozen, you might be able to only have a 20-minute wait at Frozen.
Yeah, there's definitely different strategies that you can avoid waiting in lines. No doubt about that. But like purely on the Genie Plus standpoint, one thing that I think they really should do, and I'm hoping that they do at Hollywood Studios and Epcot in particular, is that some of the character meets should have a lightning lane.
Yeah.
Like when they do Mickey and Friends at Communicore Hall, I won't be surprised if it has a lightning lane.
I
And
won't
very
either.
similar to the Princess Fairy Tale Hall or whatever.
Or Mickey
Yeah, but like Anna and Elsa could use a lightning lane.
100%.
I think and that's just an easy win to give it more value. And Mickey and Minnie, like yesterday, Mickey and Minnie's Red Carpet Dreams at Hollywood Studios was over an hour. You know, I think that could easily be a lightning lane. There's sometimes where you won't need it, but there's sometimes where you don't need it for Living with the Land. So, like, what
Yeah.
does it hurt? Same with Darth Vader, Chewbacca. Those guys could all have, a lightning lane so that you could do those quickly. I think those are all easy options that they could put in, but we'll see. I definitely think that Genie Plus as a whole is going to be due for a revamp soon.
Yeah.
And you talk about Magic Kingdom, it needs a revamp there when you're gonna have Tron is gonna be the virtual queue, individual lightning lane. It's got to go to standby at some point because you got to think the demand's going to go down. But at the same time, if people hate Tiana's as much as these influencers say they're going to, maybe it won't have as much demand as they say. I still think it's going to be like a 2 or 3 hour wait for the
Oh,
first couple weeks.
listen, it's always a 90 or 85-minute ride when it was Splash Mountain. So it's going to
Right.
be,
But it's going to get worse when Big Thunder Mountain's not open, right? So you're going to have a year of that. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train has been around for 10 years now, and it's still an individual lightning lane and not on Genie Plus. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think the whole thing needs a little bit of a revamp, but I'm not complaining about it too much. I think it is something that you should buy. So I hope that answers the question in a long way. I think it depends on the circumstances, what you want to ride, but for the most part, we are Genie Plus people. So absolutely feel free to get that. The next question was, how do I get back to Pop Century after the late Fantasmic show? Will the Skyliner still be running? So for those that don't know, the latest show has been at 10:45. It runs for about 29 minutes. So I think people that are not used to being at the parks are just not aware that the Skyliner will continue to run for an hour after the park closes. And usually that means an hour after the end of the last show.
Yeah.
So it's just not something you need to worry about unless you're
But
like hanging out for some ungodly amount of time.
the other option is they'll start running buses if they do shut the Skyliner down. So as
Same
long
thing
as
if it rains or lightning and the Skyliner has to
yeah.
get shut down.
And it's one of those that you walk out to the buses and you say, "Hey, listen, Skyliner's not running. I'm staying at Pop. Where do I go?" Listen, a lot of times they'll just make a call. They'll say, "Hey, we got somebody." They'll be shocked. I've seen people get a minivan for free from that because they
Right.
were that late. So
And it's not far either. So it's an easy fix for that one. The next question that we got is a great one, and it's about bounce back offers. Is a bounce back offer at Walt Disney World a good deal? So for those that don't know, a bounce back offer is when you're currently at Walt Disney World on a vacation, you can get an offer from Disney for up to 35% off on a future vacation, but it has to be booked within 7 days of your checkout on your current vacation. There are exclusions on, what dates it applies to and things like that, but oftentimes you can get a really, really good deal. I quoted a guest on a bounce back offer yesterday, and it was 7 days at Beach Club with 4 days of park tickets for under $6,000.
ooh.
Which, if you're familiar with Beach Club's pricing, that's a darn good deal. It was basically 35% off, which is pretty rare.
So let me ask this before we get into this question: what is the bounce back offer right now? Because normally isn't it normally stay about the same for a quarter or something like that?
It's up to 35% off, and it's going out until 2025. So there's already some dates that you can book out to, but they don't ever give you a specific amount. You have to call and get a quote from Disney on what that bounce back offer will be for whatever room and whatever dates that you want, and they just tell you what the numbers are. So we can't say this resort for these dates is always going to be 35% off. It just depends. And then there's also some that aren't even available in the offer. Like when I called for the guest that I called for a couple of days ago, the Polynesian wasn't an option, right? So there was no discounted rooms available for the Polynesian, but Beach Club, Yacht Club, Contemporary was also a great deal. Animal Kingdom was not available. Caribbean Beach was a great deal, but it was like, I believe that it was Beach Club was only like $1,000 more for a 7-day vacation than Caribbean Beach.
Now I'm going to ask
And if
this.
you that's a steal, right?
Oh, it
When you
is a
talk about
steal, yeah.
is it a good deal? That's a steal. And contextually speaking, right? Like Disney is always expensive. We're not saying that like that's, not a significant amount of money.
Are they going before January or of
No,
the
that was a 2025 trip. I think it was early June that we looked at. It might have been May.
the pool's
It
gonna
was,
be
it,
closed?
would- it would
That's the
avoided
only
spring break. I
downfall.
remember that.
The only downfall, the pool's closed for next
Yeah,
year.
well, yeah, and again, there's different ones, there's different rates for all those different things, and
But no, listen, I 100% think that the bounce back offer is a good deal if you're ready to go back, because I know in the past they've included free dining at some points where it's only specific to people staying there, and you book it, and it's the same thing on a cruise. If you book essentially like a bounce back, I don't know what they call it.
it's a bounce back offer on a cruise. Yep.
Yeah, so you get 10% off,
Yeah.
which is a big deal. So it's one of those that I think it's a great deal. Always contact your travel agent to make sure that they can set that up for you. And a lot of times they put something on like when they're cleaning your room, or they'll leave you a voicemail about it, right?
Yeah, you'll get notifications from Disney while you're on your current trip, and they'll definitely let you know. You'll get an email if you work with the travel agent. Your travel agent will remind you. They'll get you a quote. Like if you work with me, I'm going to get you a quote. It doesn't cost anything. The other part of it too is even if you're not ready to go back, it's only a $200 deposit, and it's refundable. So what I've told my guests is like if you think that you've got some dates that you'd want to go, even if you only want to do like 7 days, right? Book like a 10-day block with your $200 deposit, and I can take days off on either end of it, and we can figure out a way to make it work for you. Or sometimes Disney will let me move it, but after 7 days, I can't get you the discount anymore. I've had clients that have changed their mind on day 8, and they're like, I'm sure Disney will make an exception. They don't. Like
No.
under any circumstances with the bounce back offers, Disney does not care. You're not getting that offer, which the other part of it too, and the beauty of working with a travel agent in particular is you're going to get the best offer at all times. So like in June of next year, there may be a 50% kids tickets and 50% off kids dining plans offer, right? And that may end up being a better deal than 35% off your room. We can always switch the promotion. So we're going to make sure that you get the best deal, one way or another. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff, and you don't have to worry about looking at it yourself or monitoring it or whatever. And I think that that's helpful. But the big thing is knowing that you can put $200 down and you can just cancel anytime you want your $200 back, and you're done with it.
Yeah.
So the bounce back offers are a great deal, and I highly recommend you always check out what's available. Next was January, February, or June. We're considering for a Walt Disney World trip with our family of 5. What month is best? Chib, you and I, like when we first started this podcast, this is one of my favorite subjects. If you had to rank January, February, or June, because in terms of pricing, they're all going to be about the same.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like off-peak pricing. If you had to rank those 3 months, where are you ranking them?
February number 1. I'm gonna go June 2nd, January 3rd, and I know you're a big January guy, and here's my reasoning for it. There's so much going on in January that if you go at the end of January and right at the beginning of February, you're going to be all right. But with the marathon, with Martin Luther King weekend, and then Festival of the Arts starting, you're going to get real busy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the end of the month, it calms down, but that's why
we've also got Martin Luther King Day in there.
That's why I said Martin Luther King Day. And then, so that's why I put February 1st. I loved going in the summer because I'm a teacher. So that's why June is second for me. It's honestly, it's been quiet. This week right now is actually kind of a cheaper time to go, especially DVC point wise. And I don't know. I like June. It's hot. I get it, but everything's open.
It's not that bad this week. I've got like 5 families down there right now, and all of them have said it's hot, but it's not as hot as they expected it to be. And to be honest with you, I think that that's the answer about Walt Disney World in the summer in general. Is people always make it seem like it's like stepping on the surface of the sun. It's never that bad.
It is
It's
at
humid.
2:00 in the afternoon. I mean, 2 to 3 o'clock.
I mean, but it's humid. But like you go to Epcot and none of the rides are outside. So like, you're walking around enjoying food. You're popping in places with air conditioning. It's really not as big of a deal as people make it seem. And I think the majority of like people that go at this time kind of enjoy it that way. But Chip's made some really good points. June is very affordable. January, you've got the marathon, which the marathon is a great week to go.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. It's a great event if you can experience it yourself, like if you can actually be a runner, but also like you can get some really low crowds because at certain times there's not runners going, to the parks. The downside is that on the marathon day in particular, traffic can be wonky, so getting on the buses and getting around can take a little longer than normal. January is always my favorite month to go, as Chip pointed out. I think it's partially because I love Run Disney, right? I love the marathon weekend, but the weather is just so nice. It's
Yeah.
really, really cool. Sometimes you need shorts and a hoodie, and I love that weather when I'm going to the theme parks. So no, January is definitely number one for me. February would be number two for the exact same reason. It's still pretty cool. The only downside is you've got to get your kids out of school to be able to go in February if you've got children. June would be last for me, and it's only because it's just hotter. So
Yeah.
I think that that is really my way of gauging it. I think the crowds are all pretty similar. The later in June you go, the lower the crowds are going to be. But I think January, February, and early June are going to be about the same in my opinion. And there's great deals to be had for all of them as long as you can avoid Martin Luther King weekend and the race weekend, which this year I think is the 9th through the 13th. That
Yep.
weekend there's like no discounts, no promotions, full price everything because they know they can take all that money from all the Run Disney folks. So that's the way we would rank them, and let us know how you guys would rank them on social media. I think we've got a good consensus there that there's not a bad time to go. Next question, and this one came from Mark on Instagram. Do magic bands need a revamp? Mine falls off all the time. As I'm not kidding you, Chip. I literally just today, after I sent you the list of questions that we had a guest text me and say, what do I do? I lost my magic band. And so first of all, there you can recover it, right? Like
Yeah.
Disney can identify it. If it gets turned into lost and found, they'll bring it to your room. So you just have to let them know there's a form and a number you can call to do that. But generally speaking, Chip, do magic bands need a revamp?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I hate that you have to pay for them now, but
They're expensive too.
they are. They're not cheap. Do they need a revamp? I mean, they just came out with the Magic Band 2s, which are okay, I guess. I don't know. That's actually I saw that question earlier and I had like, I don't know if it does. If you're a big Apple Watch person, you can your watch becomes a Magic Band.
My wife gives me the hardest time about that because we go all the time and I never set up either one of our Apple Watches to be magic bands because I like to wear the magic band.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I love wearing those things. It's like
correct.
the feeling that you're at Disney, right? Like if you've got your
Yes.
magic band on, you're there. But from like a style and like functionality standpoint, they do fall off all the time and they could use a revamp in terms of the way they look, I think. But in terms of
Listen,
function and whatever, I think it's fine.
for my kids, we kind of have a trick. We looking down here, I put them in a bag.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
like, I mean, that I put all my kids in my pocket or
yeah,
in my backpack.
my kids
They don't
don't
wear them.
have theirs. Yeah, they don't have theirs. That's the big thing as kids. They have you can go on Amazon and buy the little clip things that hold them on. They're okay. It's just you probably need more of a watch type of banding thing. I don't know if they'll
I think
ever
it's
do
the
that or not.
band that bothers me because
Yeah.
they do just fall off so easily. Like you bump into somebody you bump into something and they can very easily become detached. So I can agree that they need a revamp in that sense. And I also, sometimes don't like the way they look, but I also love wearing them. So, that's
You're
our
not
two
wrong.
cents on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
he's
not
not
wrong.
wrong.
They want a revamp for sure. Last question that we've got here, and then we're going to wrap things up for this week. If you and this one's good, Chip. If you can only pick two character meals at Walt Disney World for a trip with small kids, which two are you picking? For this instance, the kids are 7 and 4. You can use your own kids if you'd like. But Chip, what two character dining reservations at Walt Disney World are you making?
Ooh. If I knew
This is where we
girls or
play the
boys, yeah.
what's the $1 million? What was that? Who wants to be a millionaire? You play the
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think there's a secret answer that if you like Winnie the Pooh, I
Oh, no, you're not.
dude, Crystal Palace breakfast, here's my reason. The churro Mickey waffles
No
is a
way,
trend.
Chip.
I'm not
No,
saying
no
this
way, Chip.
this this
You
I'm
are
saying
not
if you
sending this family to Crystal Palace.
all
You're
right,
not gonna
honestly,
do it.
I'm not saying I would, but that it would cross my mind. I'm probably thinking Tusker House is probably one that I'm gonna do. You're gonna see I think you see all the Fab Five, or do you at least see four? I don't. You might not see
Yeah.
Daisy. And I would go for dinner or lunch. You get more bang for your buck that way. It's a little bit more expensive. Ooh, the other one. I don't like, and you don't. I don't think you like it either. What's the one in the contemporary?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, Chef Mickey's?
yeah, I'm not a Chef Mickey's person.
Not at
Um,
all.
you know what? We're gonna do it this year. Akershus. I think you go to the Princess, and go meet all the princesses at Akershus, and
Akershus is definitely I just don't like the menu there, but it's definitely like, in terms of meeting characters, it's the best bang for your buck without question. My number 1 is 1900 Park Fair. And, like, I think the characters are unique. Aladdin, Mirabelle, Cinderella, like, uh, Tiana, I think that's an awesome experience. You're getting Tiana in a different outfit too, which I think is fun. The food, all the reviews on the food are fantastic. Only downside is that it's not, not in a park, which is a bit of a bummer. And then the second one that I would go with is the classic, which is Cinderella's Royal Table.
uh,
My honorable mention, like Chip's honorable mention, I think is Crystal Palace, and shout out to our friend Hallie Jones because I'm pretty sure she loves Crystal Palace.
yes, she
But
does.
I think one of the underrated ones is Storybrooke Dining at Artist Point, and getting to meet the Evil Queen and Dopey, and it's a solid meal. I think that's one that's interesting, just because I like the opportunity to get to meet characters that you can't easily meet elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so, or that are in unique outfits. Topolino's is one that, you get Mickey in the fun painter's outfit and stuff like that. Garden Grill, you get the farmer's outfits. Those are fun. But if
You
we're
know what?
narrowing it down to two, those are my two.
7 and 4, I mean, over at Hollywood Studios at Hollywood and Vine, you might be in
A good
play
one.
for the breakfast going and doing the Disney Junior. I know when we went, I don't know, we're going on 6 years, 7 years ago. It was Doc McStuffins, Jake from Jake and the Neverland Pirates. Oh,
Vampirina,
Vampirina's there now. I don't know who's there now. I think it's Vampirina.
Fancy Nancy, Vampirina, and Doc McStuffins. I know those three for sure.
And then Goofy, I think Goofy's the
Yeah.
fourth one. I think it's a good meal too. My wife thought that was 10 times better than Chef Mickey's.
Chef Mickey's is not a great meal. And it's just to me, Chef Mickey's is like the old school meet Mickey with breakfast, and it's a little bit, dare I say, overrated. But yeah, it definitely wouldn't crack my top two. Cinderella's
And
Royal Table, I think, gets a bad rap because it's so expensive, but the
yeah,
meal is always solid. It is expensive, but there's something special about, having a meal in the castle, and you only get to do that. Sometimes you only get to do it once, so worth it.
I'll have more feedback because we're doing Akershus breakfast and we're doing 1900 Park Fair and Hollywood and Vine for dinner one night on our trip coming up. So I'll be able to answer more of that better on when we get back. But
Solid.
um, yeah,
And that's going to wrap it up for this week. Chip, as always, we appreciate it, man.
thank
Where
you.
can people find you on social media, Chip?
Robinson dad life, enjoying my summer right now.
There he is. The football coach is enjoying his summer off with the kids. And as always, you can find me at Adventures of a Disney Dad on all social media platforms or on YouTube. We're there also. Look for the podcast weekly. We appreciate the support. If you'd like to book a trip with me for your next Universal or Walt Disney World vacation, the quote is free to you. My services are free to you. You can check out a quote at the link in our show description in the notes. We greatly appreciate the support as always. And thank you again. If you could like, rate, and review the podcast on whatever platform you listen to, that's always appreciated. It helps supports the show. And we will see you in the parks.
We'll see you when we see you.